You think you know your husband? You think 12 years building a humanitarian empire means something I did too, until his 5-day trip to Geneva turned into an email not meant for me. An email about a luxury resort in Austin, Texas. 5 days is all it took, and that message. Your husband is here with another. That was not a warning. It was a challenge, and I walked in myself. My name is Eliza Vance. I am 38 years old, and for a decade, I have been the silent partner. I was once a senior analyst for a major nonprofit fund, the kind of person who could find a single misplaced dollar in a sea of good intentions. I was sharp, I was respected, and I gave it all up to become the chief architect of my husband's ascent. My husband is Julian Vance. If you live in Denver, you know his face. They call him the Saint of Silicon Prairie. He is the founder and visionary behind Vance Philanthropic Ventures, the man who brings humanitarian tech to the world's most vulnerable. He gives the speeches. He charms the donors. He gets his photograph taken with world leaders. I am the woman who built the infrastructure that allows him to fly so high, the one who stepped back so he could step forward. He was preparing for his 5-day trip to the Global Health Summit in Geneva, Switzerland. I was in our cavernous, minimalist bedroom, packing his suitcase. It was a ritual. I folded his crisp white shirts, the ones that looked so earnest on camera. I rolled the silk ties, each one a study in understated power. Julian, I said, holding up a dark blue tie. I ran the numbers again on that local children's literacy program. It is solid. The proposal is flawless. It just needs the seed funding. He turned from the mirror, already in his travel suit, and smiled. It was his public smile, the one that raised $20 million at the last gala. Eliza, darling, it's a sweet project, but it's small. It is not global scale. VPV has to think about the bigger picture. He kissed my forehead, a gentle, patronizing dismissal. The suitcase clicked shut. He had been gone for 2 days. 2 days of me managing the household, approving VPV press releases, and coordinating the guest list for his return. I was in the home office, the room he thought I only used to pay bills, when the email chimed. It was from Julian's new assistant, some nervous kid fresh out of college. It was a forwarded message. I was carbon copied, an obvious mistake. My eyes scanned the subject line, reservation confirmation, Ethelred Springs. I opened it. It was a booking, a 5-night reservation for J. Vance at Ethelred Springs, an absurdly exclusive, wildly expensive wellness resort tucked away in the hills outside Austin, Texas, not Geneva. Before my mind could even form the question, a second email landed, this one frantic and capitalized. Ms. Vance, please disregard that last email. My deepest apologies. That reservation was for Mr. Vance's cousin, who is also named J. Vance. Julian just asked me to book it as a favor. So sorry for the confusion. I stared at the screen. The air in the room suddenly felt thin, suffocating. I am the person who manages the entire Vance family tree for donor events, for the holiday mailing list, for the sprawling network of philanthropic connections. I know every third cousin, every distant branch. Julian Vance does not have a cousin named J. Vance. The analyst inside me, the part of me I thought had gone dormant, sat up. The woman who could smell fraud through a 20-page annual report was wide awake. I did not cry. I did not throw my laptop. I simply closed the email client. I opened a new file. A blank, beautiful, perfectly logical Excel spreadsheet. Julian always underestimated my administrative privileges. He assumed I just used my back-end access to the VPV servers to update the holiday card list and approve catering invoices. He never imagined I still possessed the digital keys to the entire kingdom. He never imagined I was the one who built the firewall. My fingers didn't shake. I ran a search for all corporate credit cards. There were the 5 standard executive accounts, all of which I monitored. And then there was a 6th, a Special Projects Amex, issued under a shell LLC I had never heard of, with all statements routed to a private email. The card's activity for the past 6 months consisted almost entirely of charges based in Austin, Texas, expensive dinners, hotel suites, and recurring payments to a private car service. The spreadsheet was no longer blank. I opened a new browser tab. I went to the Vance Philanthropic Ventures website. Under Events, there was no mention of Julian attending the Global Health Summit. I thought, perhaps it was a last-minute addition. I went to the official website for the Global Health Summit in Geneva. I pulled up the full 4-day schedule. I searched the list of keynote speakers, panelists, and registered attendees. Julian Vance's name was not there. My heart was beating a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. I typed Ethelred Springs, Austin into the search bar. The resort's website was all whispering beige tones and promises of curated wellness. Under their Events tab, I found a schedule for this week, the Ethelred Symposium on Biomedical Futures. I scanned the speaker list, and there she was, the keynote speaker for Day 3, Dr. Kaylin Reed. I knew that name. Dr. Kaylin Reed was a brilliant biomedical researcher. She was also VPV's single largest grantee for the previous fiscal year, receiving an 8-figure grant for her groundbreaking work in predictive health analytics. And here she was, not in a lab, but at an exclusive Texas resort, the same resort Jay Vance was booked into. This was my home turf now. I logged into the VPV internal email server. As an administrator, I didn't need his password. I ran a search for all correspondence between Julian Vance and Kaylin Reed. Hundreds of emails flooded the screen. The first few were professional. Then, they were not. I skipped past the sickeningly trite romantic exchanges. I was not interested in their affair. I was interested in their business. I searched for keywords. Austin. Phase 2. Disbursement. I found it. An email from Julian to Kaylin, sent 3 weeks ago. Kaylin, the buyers are confirmed for the Ethelred meet. They are ready to move on Phase 2 as soon as the data is fully prepped for disbursement. The first transfer will be completed 48 hours after the presentation. Data. What data? My mind raced through VPV's portfolio, and then it hit me. The Global Clean Water app. It was our flagship project, Julian's baby. An application given to hundreds of thousands of people in developing nations, designed to help them find clean water sources. To use the app, users had to fill out a health profile to help us track waterborne illness, full medical histories, genetic predispositions, sensitive, private, personal health data. They were not just having an affair. They were preparing to sell the private medical data of the world's most vulnerable populations to a private pharmaceutical conglomerate. The entire humanitarian project was a front, a massive, intricate data mining operation. I looked at the screen, at the cold, hard proof. My career had not just been put on pause. My expertise had not just been sidelined. It had been used. My analytical mind, my nonprofit credibility, my name. I was the respectable cover story for the largest-scale humanitarian fraud I had ever seen. I clutched an encrypted hard drive from the back of my desk safe, a relic from my old auditing days. I plugged it into my laptop. The VPV server directory was open. I found the file path for the Global Clean Water app data, the terabytes of raw health profiles. I targeted the email chains between Julian and Kaylin, the Phase 2 projections, and the hidden Amex statements. I clicked Download. The progress bar appeared. The sheer volume of data meant it would be slow. My home office was silent except for the frantic clicking of the external drive. I watched the numbers. 5%, 8%. I was risking everything. If he had IT monitoring server access, I was already caught. 10%. Then, my cursor, which was resting near the bottom of the screen, zipped across the desktop. My hand was 3 feet away, gripping the edge of the desk. The cursor moved on its own. It hovered over the cancel button for the download. It twitched, like a nervous finger, then moved away. I stopped breathing. The air in the room felt thick and cold. The screen flickered once, then twice, as if resetting itself. A small, gray text box materialized in the center of my monitor. It wasn't an application I recognized. It was a system-level alert. Text appeared, typed slowly, deliberately. "Stop looking, Eliza." I gasped and shoved my chair back, the legs scraping loudly on the hardwood floor. More text appeared. "You won't like what you find." It was him. This was not an IT alert. This was Julian. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He had installed spyware. He had put high-level remote access surveillance software on my personal laptop, the one I used to manage our finances, our schedules, our entire life. He had access to my microphone, my camera, my screen. He was in Austin, in that luxury resort, watching me. He had been watching me this whole time. He knew I was suspicious. He knew I had found the emails. He was toying with me. My panic lasted only a second, replaced by a sudden, cold rage. I did not try to close the window. I did not move the mouse. I slammed the laptop shut with all my strength. The thud of the screen hitting the keyboard was definitive. I stood in the center of the room, my heart hammering. I ripped the encrypted drive's cable from the USB port. I could not trust anything digital. Not my phone, not the home Wi-Fi, not the smart speakers listening in every room. He had turned our home into a panopticon, and I was the prisoner. I grabbed my purse, my car keys, and the encrypted drive I had just yanked. I left the dead laptop on the desk. I drove out of our pristine, monitored neighborhood. I drove past the VPV headquarters, a glass tower of lies. I drove to the one place I knew would be safe, the one place without a digital footprint, the main branch of the Denver Public Library. I walked past the rows of books, the smell of old paper a comforting balm. In the back, by the reference section, was a bank of public access computers. I paid $2 in cash for 60 minutes of time. Using the clumsy, outdated browser, I created a new, anonymous email account. I had one ally, one person from my old life who I knew would believe me. His name was Marcus Thorne. He was my first mentor, a forensic accountant so brilliant he found the work boring. He had retired early, utterly disgusted with the moral theater of the philanthropic world. He hated hypocrites. I sent him a simple message. "Marcus, I need an audit. It is very bad. Our old place, 1 hour. Eliza." Our old place was a 24-hour diner with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like battery acid. We used to go there to celebrate closing a case. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back booth, looking just as cynical and tired as he had 10 years ago. "You look terrible, Eliza," he said instead of hello. Finally bored of playing the saint's wife, I slid into the booth. I did not have time for pleasantries. "He is not a saint, Marcus." I slid the encrypted USB drive across the sticky table. "I only got 10% of the data before he locked me out. He is watching me. He installed spyware on my laptop. He is in Austin, not Geneva." Marcus's entire demeanor changed. The cynicism vanished, replaced by the sharp focus I remembered. He pulled a battered, specialized laptop from his briefcase, one I knew was air-gapped, completely disconnected from any network. He plugged in my drive. He read. He scrolled through the emails. He looked at the Phase 2 projections. He saw the name Kaylin Reed. He saw the references to the data disbursement and the offshore accounts. He was silent for a full 5 minutes, his face growing paler. Finally, he closed the laptop. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a cold, professional horror. "Dear God, Eliza," he said, his voice a low whisper. "This is not infidelity. This is not just skimming the grants. This is federal prison. This is a RICO case." Sir Marcus and I sat in the harsh fluorescent light of the diner. The coffee in my cup was a black, cold mirror. "RICO," I repeated, the word tasting like ash. "Racketeering," Marcus said, leaning forward. His voice was low and urgent. "He uses VPV, the humanitarian arm, to receive legitimate tax-free donor funds. He then awards a massive grant to Kaylin Reed, our brilliant researcher. But it is not for research. It is a payment. She is not just his mistress. Eliza. She is his partner in the crime. They launder the money through her research projects, and in return, they are both selling the intellectual property that stolen medical data to the highest bidder. The entire VPV is a shell, a brilliantly disguised, massive fraud. I sat back. My mind was racing, connecting the dots faster than my emotions could keep up. So the 10% I downloaded, it is not enough. He knows I am onto him. By now, he is probably scrubbing the servers, creating new narratives. He will blame the assistant. He will blame me. Marcus nodded grimly. He is already deleting. The data I have is damning, but it is incomplete. We need the full transaction history. We need the originals. We need someone who was inside the finance department. I knew immediately. Sarah Jenkins. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The CFO he axed. The one who went public saying he was a visionary, but she was pursuing other opportunities. He fired her, I said, the memory becoming painfully clear. It was sudden. About 8 months ago. The official reason was irreconcilable strategic differences. I remember Julian complaining she was not a team player and too focused on the minutia. Minutia. Marcus scoffed. That is what people call the evidence when it is piling up against them. I stood up, leaving a $10 bill on the table for the coffee. I have to find her. I went back to the library. I could not risk my car's GPS. I could not risk a cell phone. I used the public computer again. Sarah Jenkins had dropped off the map, just as Julian intended. But I knew her background. I found her name listed as a consultant for a tiny local accounting firm in a strip mall 2 towns over. I drove there, paying cash for a burner phone at a gas station on the way. I called the firm from the parking lot. When she answered, I just said, "Sarah, it is Eliza Vance. I am in your parking lot. Please, I need 5 minutes. It is about VPV." There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing. "I will be right down," she said, and hung up. She stepped out of the sad beige building, looking older, more tired, but her eyes were still just as sharp as I remembered. She did not look surprised. She just looked wary. We did not greet each other. I got right to it. "You were fired because you were asking questions about the Kaylin Reed grants." Her face, which had been a mask of professionalism, tightened. "Eliza, I cannot—" "He is not in Geneva," I interrupted. "He is in Austin at Ethelred Springs with Kaylin Reed. They are not having an affair. They are selling the global clean water data to a pharmaceutical company, and they are using the grants to launder the money." Sarah Jenkins stared at me. She did not gasp. She did not look shocked. She looked, for the first time, relieved. "I have been waiting for this call for 8 months," she said quietly. "You knew." I suspected. I saw the wire transfers. I saw the shell companies he was setting up to receive the grant money back. I flagged them. He told me I was misunderstanding the complex financial instruments of global philanthropy. The next week, I was called into HR and offered a severance package that was, frankly, an insult, tied to the most restrictive, terrifying non-disclosure agreement I have ever seen. I have not been able to work in the industry since. He blacklisted me. We stood by my car, 2 women Julian had discarded. "I have some of the data," I said. "But not all." He locked me out. He knows I am suspicious. Sarah smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a forensic accountant who had just been vindicated. "He locked you out, Eliza. But he fired me. He had security walk me out of the building. He gave me exactly 1 hour to clear out my desk." My heart leaped. "Sarah." He thought I would be crying. I was. But I was also very, very busy. I did not just copy the files I was working on. I copied the entire VPV primary server, every email, every invoice, every wire transfer, every hidden ledger. I have it all. Eliza. From day one. I could have kissed her. "But the NDA," I said, the hope faltering. "You cannot use it." "I cannot," she agreed. If I go to the press or the FBI, he will sue me into oblivion. I will be the disgruntled employee fabricating evidence. But I am not a disgruntled employee, I said, the plan forming, beautiful and sharp. I am his wife. And I am, according to the VPV charter he wrote to impress his donors, an honorary member of the board. Sarah's smile widened. An honorary board member, with full oversight rights, who never signed a single NDA. We looked at each other. Julian had made 2 fatal mistakes. He had underestimated the woman he fired, and he had underestimated the woman he married. We met Marcus back at the diner that night. The 3 of us, the wife, the accountant, and the auditor. Sarah slid a hard drive across the table to Marcus. It was the complete case. "This is everything," Marcus said, after looking at it on his secure laptop. The complete digital trail. "But we have a problem," Sarah said, her face grim. "He is moving. According to these files, the final data transfer and the final payout are happening in Austin. Once that money is in an offshore account and that data is gone, he will scrub the servers clean. By the time we go to the feds, the digital evidence will be gone. He will claim what we have is fabricated." I looked at them. "So, digital evidence is not enough?" "No," Marcus said. "We need something physical. We need the key to the transaction, and he has it with him in Austin." I went home from the diner and sat in the dark. My house, our house, was a cold, digital trap. I was being watched, but I could use that. He was expecting the panicked wife. He was expecting tears. I would give him the distracted, slightly foolish wife instead. I picked up my phone, the one I knew he was monitoring. I took a deep breath, picturing the stage in our living room, and dialed his number. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Eliza, is everything all right?" His voice was smooth, laced with just the right amount of a busy husband's concern. "Hi, Julian." "Oh, I am fine," I said, pitching my voice a little higher, a little more breathless than usual. "Gosh, I am so sorry to bother you at the summit. I feel so silly." "What is it, darling?" "It is just that email from your assistant, the one about the resort in Austin." I gave a little self-deprecating laugh. "I actually thought for a second. I mean, how crazy is it that you have a cousin with the same name? I just got myself all worked up over nothing. I am so sorry." There was a pause. I could almost hear the gears turning, the tension releasing from his shoulders 3 states away. He was buying it. "Oh, sweetheart, you do not need to apologize," he said, his tone instantly becoming warm, patronizing. "It is my fault for not telling you. He is a distant cousin, very troubled. I was just trying to help him out." "You are just so good," I murmured. "Anyway, I have my own exciting news, which is why I called. It is actually perfect timing. You will not believe it, but I just got a last-minute invitation to speak at the Women in Fundraising Symposium in Dallas." "In Dallas?" he said, his voice bright. He sounded genuinely pleased. "Relieved. Yes, it is just for 2 days, a quick keynote on philanthropic strategy. With you in Geneva." I thought. "Why not? I think I will go." "Eliza, that is wonderful," he boomed. "Absolutely. You should go. You deserve it. My, oh my, we are just a pair of global travelers, are not we?" "We are," I said, my voice sweet as poison. "I will fly out tomorrow morning. I love you, Julian." "I love you too, darling. Do well in Dallas." I hung up. I put the phone down on the kitchen counter and walked away from it. I went back to the public library. I used the same anonymous computer terminal. I logged onto the airline website. I booked one, non-stop ticket. One way. Destination Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Before I left the library, I used the computer to access my personal bank accounts, the ones tied to the inheritance from my grandmother, a substantial sum I had kept separate. Just in case. I had always told Julian it was for our future, our children. He thought it was just another part of our shared empire. He was wrong. I initiated a full transfer. I moved every single dollar from the joint savings it was in to a new trust, at a new bank, under my maiden name, Eliza Thorne. The transfer was irreversible. It would take 24 hours to clear. By the time he realized it was gone, I went home and packed a small overnight bag. I put my wedding ring on the dresser, next to the dead laptop. I was walking out the door, burner phone in hand, when it buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. Eliza, bad news. My source inside the bank's fraud division says the payout is being fast-tracked. The final transfer is not in 2 days. It is scheduled for tomorrow night, 8 p.m. They are moving the timeline up. He must be getting spooked. Tomorrow night, Julian's 5-day trip was almost over, and so, in every way that mattered, was mine. I got into my car and drove to the airport. I was in the back of a cab, crawling through the departure lane traffic, when the burner phone buzzed again. It was not Marcus. It was an unknown number. There was no text, just a single, high-resolution image. It was Julian and Kaylin Reed. They were at a swimming pool, a stunning infinity pool overlooking the Texas Hill Country. He was in swim trunks. She was in a robe. They were kissing, not a peck, but a deep, passionate, familiar kiss. He was smiling. He looked happy. I stared at the phone. The cab driver was asking me something about the terminal, but his voice sounded like it was coming from miles away. There he was, Julian, my husband, kissing his partner. I looked at the image, not as a wife, but as an analyst. I registered the background, the precise angle of the sun, the specific architecture of the resort. I registered the body language. This was not a stolen, guilty tryst. This was ownership. Kaylin's robe was open. His hand was on her hip. They were relaxed, confident, possessors of the scene. I did not feel the sting of betrayal. That had already happened, back in my office. I did not feel grief. That was a luxury I could no longer afford. What I felt was a profound, almost peaceful, cold clarity. It was the confirmation of a hypothesis. The affair was not the point. The partnership was. Then, the phone buzzed again. A second text message from the same unknown number. Your husband is here with another. He's happy. Stop digging. Eliza, you won't win. I read the words once, twice. Stop digging. My blood did not run cold. It turned to ice. This was not a sympathetic stranger. This was not a hotel employee trying to do the right thing. A stranger would have stopped at the photo. A stranger would not have known I was digging. Julian knew. Of course. He had sent his little message, you won't like what you find. But this message was different. It was cruder, more arrogant. It was a taunt. He's happy. You won't win. This was not Julian. This was her. This was Dr. Kaylin Reed. I realized it with a certainty that was absolute. This was the brilliant biomedical researcher, the grantee of an 8-figure sum, the woman Julian called his partner. She was not just a mistress being hidden away. She was the co-conspirator, and she knew I was a threat. She knew I was looking. She, or Julian, had seen my digital footprints, and now she was trying to scare me off. Woman to woman. She was making her move, establishing her dominance. She was the one by the pool, the one in the penthouse. I was the wife, the fool, back in Denver, presumably weeping into my laptop. It was a massive, fatal strategic error. Kaylin Reed thought I was a wife. She assumed I would react emotionally. She expected me to collapse, to shatter, to cancel my flight to Dallas and crawl into bed, defeated by the image of her kiss. She thought a broken heart was my primary motivation. She had no idea who I was. A slow, glacial rage started to move inside me. It was so cold, it almost felt like peace. This was not about a marriage anymore. This was not about love or betrayal. This was about a federal crime. This was about millions of vulnerable people whose trust was being sold. This was about a woman who had helped my husband build an empire of lies and was now, personally, trying to intimidate me into letting them get away with it. You won't win. I looked at the text message. It was the most clarifying document I had read all day. Kaylin had just confirmed she was an active, knowing participant. She had just confirmed they were scared, and she had just confirmed that I was, in fact, a threat. I did not text back. I did not block the number. I simply pressed the power button on the side of the burner phone and held it down. The screen went black. The cab pulled up to the curb. Terminal A, the driver said. Thank you, I said, my voice perfectly even. I stepped out of the cab, pulling my single small bag behind me. I walked into the airport, not as Eliza Vance, the heartbroken wife, but as Eliza Thorne, the analyst. Kayan's message had not been a warning. It had been her surrender. She thought she was ending a fight. She had just sealed her fate, and his. The war had begun. I walked through security and boarded my flight to Austin. The flight to Austin was 2 hours and 47 minutes. I did not sleep. I did not read the in-flight magazine. I watched the map on the seatback screen, tracking my progress toward the battlefield. When I landed, I ignored the gleaming, air-conditioned taxis waiting for resort guests. I took a city bus to a transfer point, then a cab, paying in cash, to a motel on the highway that smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial bleach. Sarah Jenkins was in room 204. The room was sparse and dark. She was sitting at a small table, her own secured laptop open, a map of the Ethelred Springs resort layout displayed on the screen. You made it, she said, not looking up. He thinks you are in Dallas. He thinks I am crying, I replied, dropping my bag. What is the physical key? Sarah pointed to the screen. Ethelred is a fortress. Eliza. They pride themselves on digital security. No one can hack into their system from the outside. Julian knows this. He is arrogant, but not stupid. The final transfer, the one Marcus timed for tonight at 8, cannot be done over their standard network. It requires a physical key, a failsafe. A hard drive, I said, understanding. A specific, encrypted, proprietary hard drive. Sarah confirmed. It contains the final access codes for the Swiss accounts and the authorization key to release the data to the buyer. It is the one piece of evidence that cannot be deleted, and Julian, being the narcissist he is, keeps it with him. In his room safe. He and Kaylin are in the presidential penthouse. So we need to get into his room, into his safe, while he is there. Not while he is there, Sarah said, finally looking at me. While he is on stage. She pointed to a line item on the Ethelred Symposium schedule. 8 p.m. tonight. The closing remarks and keynote address, A New Frontier in Global Health. It is being given by Dr. Kaylin Reed and our very own Julian Vance. It was perfect. He would be on stage, bathing in the applause, playing the saint, while his entire empire was being finalized in a server room. How do we get in? I asked. The key cards are digital. The elevators are locked. Julian made a lot of enemies on his way up, Sarah said. He did not just blacklist me. You remember Greg. I searched my memory. Greg, the head of security at the VPV Gala last year. The same. Julian had him fired from Ethelred's security team 6 months ago. Apparently, Greg did not show the proper deference when Julian demanded the pool be cleared for a private swim. Greg is now working the night shift, and he is our way in. He owes Julian. He has access to the master keys and the camera feeds. Sarah reached into a bag and pulled out a drab gray and white uniform. You are not going to a gala. I changed. The dress was rough, smelling faintly of bleach. I pulled my hair back into a severe bun and put on flat, rubber-soled shoes. I looked in the cracked mirror. The wife of Julian Vance was gone. A hotel worker was staring back. At 7:30 p.m., we were parked in the employee lot. Sarah handed me a blank keycard and an earpiece so small it was almost invisible. Greg will activate this card for exactly 5 minutes. Starting at 8:03, she whispered. That is when their speech begins. He will also be looping the camera feed for the penthouse hallway. You get 3 minutes. Eliza. From the moment you step out of the service elevator until you are inside that room, after that, the feed goes live again. At 7:50, I was in the concrete stairwell, pushing a heavy housekeeping cart stocked with tiny soaps and fresh towels. My heart was not hammering. It was gone. In its place was a cold, steady metronome, counting down the seconds. I pushed the cart out into the opulent, silent, carpeted service hallway. At 8:01, I heard the faint sound of applause through the resort walls. The keynote was beginning. My earpiece crackled. "Feed is looping. Now," Greg's voice said. "Elevator is open." I pushed the cart into the service elevator, rode it to the penthouse floor. The doors opened. The hallway was empty. A long stretch of beige carpet. "You are live, Eliza. 3 minutes." I pushed the cart, the squeak of the wheels sounding like a scream in the silence. I reached the double doors of the presidential penthouse. I took the key card. I swiped. The light flashed green. I pushed the door open, slipped inside, and shut it behind me with a quiet, heavy click. I was in. The penthouse suite was dark, curtains drawn against the Texas twilight. The air conditioning was cranked so low I could see my breath, and everywhere, filling the cold air, was the heavy, cloying scent of Kaylin Reed's perfume. A vanilla and sandalwood fragrance I had smelled on Julian's suits for months. A scent I had foolishly convinced myself was just from a new brand of soap at his club. I did not stop to look around. I walked straight to the large abstract painting across from the bed, a mess of angry, self-important colors. I knew Julian. He loved the illusion of art, but he valued his money more. I pulled at the frame. It was hinged. Behind it, flush with the wall, was a digital safe. My earpiece was silent. My 3 minutes were ticking down. I put my fingers on the keypad. I tried our anniversary, 12/16. Error. I tried his birthday. 0830. Error. I tried my birthday. Error. I froze, my gloved fingers hovering. Think like him. He is a narcissist. He is a god in his own mind. His anniversary is with me, a person he is betraying. His birthday is a given. What is the day he was truly born? In his own eyes, my fingers moved again. 042018, April 20th, 2018. The day his face was on the cover of Forbes magazine. The saint of Silicon Prairie. The light flashed green. The safe clicked open. My breath hitched. Inside, exactly as Sarah predicted, stacks of cash. 2 passports, one for him, one for Kaylin, and a sleek, black external hard drive, the physical key. I pulled the real drive out. Its metal casing was cold. From the pocket of my uniform, I pulled out its identical twin, the duplicate Marcus had prepared, filled with corrupted data and junk files. I placed the fake drive into the exact spot, nestled it next to the cash. I had the real one. I had it. I was pushing the safe door shut when a rectangle of light flooded the carpet at my feet. The bathroom light. The door of the master bathroom, which I thought was empty, swung open. My heart stopped. I spun around, clutching the real hard drive, bracing for Julian, for Kaylin, for security. It was none of them. It was the young assistant, the one who had sent the accidental email. His name was Leo. He was standing in the doorway, his face pale and streaked with tears. He looked terrified. I can't," he whispered, his voice trembling so hard he could barely speak. "I cannot let him do this anymore. I cannot be a part of it." He was holding something out, his hand shaking violently. It was another USB drive, a small, silver thumb drive. "I did what you said," he whispered, and I realized he was not talking to me. He was just talking. I have been recording him, on my phone, ever since he made me send that email to you. He dictated the cousin lie." He was laughing, This is everything. This is all of it. Before I could say a word, before I could even process this new, terrified ally, we both heard it, the clean, sharp beep of a keycard in the suite's main door. It was the sound of the trap snapping shut. Leo, standing by the bathroom door, made a small, suffocating noise. "They are back," he whispered, his eyes wide with pure terror. "They are early. The keynote reception. It is supposed to be another hour." He looked like he was about to bolt, to run straight into them. I grabbed his arm, my nails digging into the cheap fabric of his suit. "Not a sound," I commanded. I shoved him, hard, toward the cavernous walk-in closet opposite the bathroom. "Get in. Do not move. Do not breathe. Do you understand me?" He stumbled in, disappearing between a row of Julian's identical hand-tailored suits. I pulled the heavy louvered door shut, clicking it softly into its frame. I had less than a second. I stepped back, melting into the deepest, darkest corner of the room. A 6-foot space of shadow between a towering mahogany armoire and the thick, floor-to-ceiling drapes. The room was enormous. They would never see me, not unless they were looking. The suite's main door opened. Light from the hallway flooded in, followed by Julian's deep, self-satisfied chuckle. "I am telling you, Kaylin," the look on the senator's face. He was eating out of my hand. He is ready to commit. "He is an idiot!" Kaylin's voice, high and sharp, cut through the room. The main lights flicked on, blinding me. I did not flinch. He was staring at my dress the entire speech. "Let him stare," Julian said. "He will sign the check." Kaylin sighed, the sound of her heels clicking on the marble entryway. "God, I need champagne. My face hurts from smiling." "In a minute," Julian said. His voice was no longer the charming philanthropist. It was the clipped, focused voice of a CEO. "The 8 p.m. transfer window is open. I just want to check the key one last time before we initiate. I will feel better when that money is in Zurich." My heart was a fist, pounding against my ribs. I watched as my husband, my partner of 12 years, walked straight to the abstract painting. He did not bother with anniversaries or birthdays. He confidently tapped in the 6 digits that meant the world to him, 042018. The Forbes cover. The safe clicked open. He reached inside, past the cash, and pulled out the black hard drive. The fake. He walked over to the desk, his laptop already open and waiting. He plugged it in. Kaylin was at the minibar, her back to him. "Julian," she said, her voice tight. "I have a bad feeling. We are minutes away from a $100 million payout." "Kaylin," he said, staring at his screen, waiting for the drive to mount. "Now is not the time for your intuition." "I am serious," she snapped, turning around. She was holding a small bottle of champagne. "Your wife. She is too quiet. I sent her that picture. I sent her that text. And nothing. Not one call. Not one hysterical email. Just, 'Oh, I am going to Dallas. It feels wrong.'" Julian laughed. It was the laugh. The one I had heard him use for years, the one he used to dismiss the literacy program, to dismiss my ideas, to dismiss me. "Eliza, darling, please," he said, his eyes still on the laptop. "She is in Dallas, giving a keynote speech at some pathetic Little Women's luncheon. She is not a threat. She has never been a threat. She bought the story about my cousin. She bought the lie about Geneva. She is the perfect cover. That is all she has ever been." As the words "never been a threat" left his lips, a small thunk sound came from his laptop. A gray error box had appeared on his screen. "What the hell?" Julian muttered. He stared at the message. I could read it even from my dark corner. "Drive error. The device you connected is unreadable." Julian, Kaylin said, sensing the shift. "It is nothing," he snapped. He yanked the drive out, inspected the plug as if that was the problem, and jammed it back into the USB port. The same error box. This, this is not possible. It must be corrupted. He had not even finished the sentence when a shrill, piercing ring filled the room. It was not his phone. It was Kaylin's. She looked at the screen, her face blanching. "It is the bank," she whispered. "It is my private line. From Zurich. Why are they calling me now?" She fumbled with the phone, pressing the speaker button. "This is Dr. Reed." A cold, heavily accented voice filled the silence. "Dr. Reed, this is Henrik Larson, head of compliance. We are calling to inform you that an immediate security freeze has been placed on your primary holding account, number 473, pending a federal investigation into the origin of recently transferred funds." The champagne bottle slipped from Kaylin's hand. It did not break. It landed on the thick carpet with a dull, wet thud. "What?" Her voice was a strangled gasp. Her eyes, wide with a new, animalistic terror, flew to Julian. The account, the freeze. "What did you do?" "I did not do anything," Julian roared, staring at the useless, fake drive in his hand. He looked at the error message. He looked at the open, empty safe. His mind, fast and criminal and finally catching up, put the pieces together. The error, the freeze, the silence from Denver. "She was never in Dallas," he whispered. His head snapped up. His eyes, no longer the charming saint, but the cornered animal, scanned the vast, opulent room. He looked past the lights, past the furniture, into the shadows. And that is when he saw me. "What's the matter? Julian, trouble with your flight to Dallas?" I stepped out of the shadow. The real cold metal hard drive was heavy in my hand. Julian's face was a canvas of collapsing emotions. First, profound, stunned confusion. Then, a wave of sickening, white-hot panic. Finally, as he looked from the drive in my hand to the dead laptop, it settled into a primal, possessive rage. "Eliza," he bellowed. It was not a name. It was an accusation. "You." He lunged at me, his humanitarian hands curled into claws, aiming for the drive, for my throat. He was fast, but he was not fast enough. He had not taken 2 steps before the heavy penthouse door, the one I had slipped through, burst open, slamming against the wall. It was not a keycard this time. It was a battering ram. "FBI freeze, hands in the air. Now!" The room was suddenly full. It was chaos. 6, no, 8 agents in dark blue vests, weapons drawn, flooding the suite. Julian stopped, frozen in his lunge, his hands halfway up. Kaylin Reed let out a high-pitched, strangled shriek as her champagne flute, which she had apparently retrieved, shattered on the floor. "Hands, show me your hands!" Within seconds, both Julian and Kaylin were shoved against the wall, their wrists being cinched with plastic cuffs. The zip of the ties tightening was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Kaylin was already collapsing. "It was him!" she screamed, her face pressed against the expensive wallpaper. "It was all Julian. He coerced me. He managed the finances. I am a researcher I did not know. Tell them. Julian." Julian just stared, his chest heaving, his eyes locked on me. I stepped back, clutching the hard drive as the agents secured the scene. One of the lead agents, a woman with cold, tired eyes, looked past me. She did not look at Julian. She did not look at Kaylin. She looked straight at the louvered closet door. "You can come out now, Mr. Harris," the agent said. The signal was received. The closet door slid open. Leo stepped out, still trembling, his face a mess of tears, but he was holding his small silver USB drive like a shield. "Thank you for the signal, kid," another agent said, gently taking the drive from his hand. "We got it the second they raised their voices. It is good." Kaylin's head snapped toward Leo. "You." Julian's eyes, full of pure, undiluted hatred, finally left me and settled on his assistant. He finally understood. It was just as I had planned, all arranged. When Marcus and Sarah had prepped the FBI with their terabytes of data, the feds had started their own surveillance. They had identified the nervous, young assistant. When I met Leo in that bathroom, a crying, terrified mess, I knew he was the missing piece. He was the human corroboration. He was the one who could place Julian at the scene of the crime, in his own words. The FBI was already on the floor, waiting in the stairwell. Marcus and Sarah had done their job. The signal was supposed to be a text from my burner phone, but when Leo appeared, terrified and holding his own evidence, the plan changed. He was the one who could signal them from inside the room. His accidental email had started my investigation, and his recorded confession, triggered by the panic in the room, had just ended Julian's life. They were walked out. Kaylin was sobbing, still hysterically blaming Julian. Julian was silent. He stopped in the doorway, cuffed and surrounded by agents. He looked back at me. One last time. His face was not sad. It was not apologetic. It was a mask of pure, concentrated hatred. "Eliza," he whispered, a promise of retribution that would never be fulfilled. I just looked at him. I did not smile. I did not cry. I held up the hard drive, the analyst, the wife, the woman he had dismissed. I had walked into his fortress. I had taken the key, and now I was walking out, alone, and completely, finally, free. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We are dying to know, where in the world are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, give this video a like, and support us by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.